at Free Your Mind. Please welcome Mr. Fritz Springmeier.
It's such a privilege to be here with you, my friends. How many here are from Pennsylvania? Okay, we're going to talk about your state, the Great Holy Experiment of 1681, later in the talk. And right off at the beginning, I wanted to have us focus on Mark and the other organizers and volunteers of this, the dedication that they had, the selfless dedication, just as Mark was talking about, to the truth. And this, I'm holding it up as an example for all of us, what we can do. So, thank you, Mark, and all the rest of you. When they called me and asked if I would be a speaker, I said, what's the subject of the conference? And they said, there's three things. There's consciousness, mind control, and occult knowledge. I thought, good, I'll speak on all of those. And one of the things that I wanted to start out with is, if you are seeking the truth, if you're walking in the truth, like Mark was showing you, you are free. The truth will set you free. You are free and they are the slaves. I don't care if they're walking around with big egos and they're thinking that they're the masters. They're walking in darkness. They're lost. And as I worked with Illuminati members, I realized how dark their world is and how enslaved they were. And I worked for 8 years with Illuminati slaves to try to get them free. And in fact, someone from New York City, he was a doctor, after I got Cisco free, where she had alters, that's personalities, that were programmers, and we invited people from around the world to come into our house, and they could live with us, and we would give them whatever help we could. And this doctor from New York City came, and when we sat down initially with him, he had gone to therapists for 20 years and never gotten any help. And he had a double bind. See, the Illuminati programming that they do with their own children, this trauma-based mind control, creates double binds. A double bind is where there's no solution. You see no, how can I turn? What can I do? And then, of course, the only way that they want you to go is the way that they want you to go. And he said, I can't, we started talking to him about what he saw with this programming, and he said, I'm trapped. And we told him, yeah, it looks that way, but you can walk through the walls of the programming. Start walking through them. And he did. He listened to what we were saying. He walked through the wall that he thought that he never could go through, and he started laughing from the belly. I think he laughed for like 20 minutes. The sense of freedom that he got. Now, one example of what a double bind would be if you were going through the jungle, like let's say Vietnam with your squad, and you came upon an ambush. Now, when they ambush you, they know how you're going to react, and they're set up to take advantage of that. And long-range patrols, the elite American troops learned a trick to beat an ambush. Do you know what that is? What it is when you get ambushed, you do the exact opposite of what you would think. The first reaction would be is to fall down or to run. No, as soon as they got into an ambush, they would charge the enemy, and they would run at him, and they would overrun the enemy, which would be surprised and destroy the ambush. That's how you get through a double bind. You walk through it, okay? So don't forget that you're free and they're the slaves. We're going to talk about immortality, and we're going to talk about the Illuminati. Now, I need to clarify what the Illuminati is, because here in America, we use language in a very sloppy way, and everybody has their idea of what that word means. I think everybody knows what immortality means. I don't need to explain that. The Illuminati has been around. You know, we've been using a term in recent years, the powers that be, or I use the term the powers that should not be. And those powers have been around for a long time. There was never a point in history where the elite that were controlling us, the masters, the godlike men that ran around with their serfs and slaves. There was never a time in history where they decided, you know what, we're tired of running this world, let's just turn it over to the scum of the earth. They never did that. We thought that when we did the American Revolution, we got away from that, but they quietly snuck in their bloodlines, and that's what my Bloodlines of the Illuminati is about, is that they continued with their elite bloodlines, they continued with their corporate control, they continued the control. They just did it in a more sneaky way. So we're going to talk about some of the ways of how this control is brought about, and in relationship also to immortality. This subject I'm going to talk about tonight to you, actually, I have had on my heart and mind for about 30 years. But timing is everything in life, and I never felt like it was the right time to talk about it. And in 1997, I came out with the book Deeper Insights, which is a sequel to my formula book on the mind control, on the trauma-based mind control, and I gave in an appendix, I gave a chapter on cloning and mind consciousness transfer, which is what we're going to talk about tonight in depth. So I did give a little glimpse, but in the middle of a multitude of books and hundreds of pages, that kind of, you know, went unnoticed because I didn't really highlight it. So this is my first public talk where we're going to address this issue. It could arguably be said that immortality is the biggest secret. I know there's several big secrets that the Illuminati and the cult world have, but this might possibly be the biggest secret. And my talk today is not based on anything that the Spirit gave me or anything that somebody who was an insider gave me, which is one reason why I have hesitated to use it as a subject for a talk. And then I got a confirmation yesterday with Freeman's talk. He laid the groundwork of what I'm going to be talking about tonight, and that was confirmation. I said to myself, thank you, Spirit, for confirming that this was a good time to talk about this. This is the fountain of eternal life in Cleveland. It's man rising above death. Now this is the infinity symbol. It never ends. It's a figure 8, okay? And it's one of the symbols that the Illuminati use. Oh, and I needed to define who the Illuminati are as often the term as I'm using it. These are powerful, satanic. I know people don't like that word, but I'm going to use it anyway because I've worked with, you know, I've been face to face with hundreds of people that were in the Illuminati or trying to get out that I was working with their mind control. And in the deeper parts of their mind, they are satanic. Now, you have to bear in mind when I say that, if you understand MPD, multiple personality disorder, you might have someone who's a Christian, a humanist, and then in the deeper parts of their mind, they're a Satanist. So they're all over the place. Okay, so don't think that when I'm talking about someone who's in Illuminati that he's going to be walking around in the world dressed like Anton LaVey. No, he's probably going to be a Christian minister. So for 6,000 years, the Illuminati, at least that long, have been on a quest for immortality. And it's my contention that they have actually found some answers. And that's what we're going to discuss tonight. You know, I intentionally picked this picture here, which is kind of blurry and a little bit surreal. It's an actual picture, but it's surreal too, because I thought that that kind of represented the subject that we're talking about. There's different ways of getting immortality. And one of them is to have a city or a river or a mountain or a planet named after you. So, Pennsylvania, you know, or Alexandria, Egypt is named after Alexander the Great, or St. Petersburg after Peter the Great. Another way is what you see here. Here they've preserved the body almost immortally. I mean, they've been able to recover the DNA from these mummies, and the DNA is intact enough that it can be used for cloning. And they have been, you may have heard in the news recently that they've talked about cloning dinosaurs and stuff like that, and raised the question, should we be doing this? Okay. Okay. Those of you who have been around me the last 25 years, if you were in a restaurant, probably saw me pull out a napkin and handwrite this. There are three words here: arcane, esoteric, and occult. Now they sound different, but they have exactly the same meaning. Arcane, esoteric, and occult mean hidden knowledge. Right? Now knowledge is power. And I'm going to tell you how they use knowledge to get power. Okay? And this has been my little diagram that I have done for people over the years repeatedly. And when I break it down, it makes it all clear to people. So the first thing that I do to create a power base is to say, I have secret knowledge. Okay? Now whether I do or not is irrelevant. By saying I have it, you have to come to me for that secret knowledge. I've created an instant power base. Right? So that's number one here. And it has to be knowledge that you're really interested in. So it's especially good if it's saving Gnostic occult knowledge. Like, hey, I got the secrets of immortality, right? I'm going to give you immortality. And you have to come to me for this. I'm using this as my power base. Of course, if I gave you everything, if I told you everything I supposedly knew, I would give my power base away. So the next thing is I have to give it away in increments. So how am I going to do that? Well, for instance, in Freemasonry, you have a degree system, where I pay like maybe $110 per degree, and I go up, you know, in the Blue Lodge here, I've got 3 degrees, and then the next one in the Red Lodge, I've got up to the 32nd degree, and then the top level here is the Supreme Council, the 33rd degree. So as I rise up, I'm going to be given higher levels of knowledge. So I start here and they're saying, okay, the G stands for God. All right? And then I get up here, oh, the G stands for Gnosis, you know, secret knowledge. Or then I get way up here and they're saying, oh, the G stands for genitive principle, you know, to bugger a little boy. So this is the how they give you in increments this occult knowledge that they have. Now, there's different ways that this is done. Like the Watchtower Society, they make you dependent on what they call the Mother of God by coming out with Awake and Watchtower magazines. They're staggered. They come out every 2 weeks. And they tell their adherents that you must be in touch with the Mother of God. Okay, so they're making you dependent on the organization. The third element is that they divide this into 3 basic tiers. That's because you can't get the control out of the common person. You have to have it layered, right? So this will be called in some groups the laity, and this is the clergy, right, or your priesthood here. You've got three groups, and then the top of the pyramid is your controlling organization, and usually right here they put a false front in, so that like with the Jehovah's Witnesses, you've got the great crowd, and they're promised life on earth. You've got the anointed, and they're promised life in heaven, immortal life in heaven. And then you've got the governing body up here, which is the false front, and then your string pullers. So this basic pattern is repeated countless times. And sometimes they subdivide these different three tiers, but you'll still see the three basic tiers. So if we take that pyramid and we lay it on its side and we look at how the Illuminati, the string pullers, look at it, in the center are these Illuminati members who know each other. The head of the Watchtower Society is going to get on the phone and call the head of the Mormon Church. They know each other, they collaborate with each other, the string pullers. And then outside of that is the controlling, ruling body, at least that the public knows about. And then out here is your priesthood group, and then out here are your common people. And this is the perfect control mechanism, because right here, let's say this piece of pie here is Jehovah's Witnesses. You have them fighting the Mormons, have them fighting the Catholics, have them fighting another group, New Age group or whatever. So you divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer. The people on the outside that are being controlled never rebel against the center. They would rebel against the actual string pullers. The priesthood group is going to act as a buffer, and then you got another buffer here. So these are false partitions in here. For instance, I had a friend who was homeless and jobless, and he was in my house. He was Mormon. He went to the Mormon Employment Agency, and they got him a job on staff with the Church of Scientology. That's the type of that's the type of incidents that you will see numerous times once you realize that these are false partitions between the different groups. So like the Knights of Columbus, which is a Catholic fraternal organization, since the 60s has been having high-level meetings to coordinate things with the Freemasons. But most people think that they're enemies, and they get all their insignia and badges from the same company. So these are false partitions here. And what has been, as you might imagine, one of the best hooks for creating a religion that people are going to give their control over to you? Immortality. That has been a favorite subject. And I might interject here that, Christ said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, all those who believe on me shall not perish but have everlasting life." And that's John 6:14. And then the most famous verse, probably most of you have heard it sometime, John 3:16. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Okay, we're looking at Christ, the scriptures promising eternal life. And what would pull the rug out from Islam, from Judaism, from Christianity? What would pull the rug out from underneath those? If the Illuminati, if the power brokers could all of a sudden say, "Hey, we can give you immortality," that's going to wipe out those religions. Now, this is what I have been seeing 30 years ago up to now. I have been, and when I've introduced this to people, I haven't gotten necessarily a positive, I second that. But that's okay, because I still have not changed my view, and that is, I see these power brokers are very confident in where they're going with their agenda. And they want to bring in a world religion. And they are convinced that they can totally wipe out all the other world religions. And I ask myself, what is the thing that would unravel all these other religions? And to me, it seems like to use the idea that we can give you immortality would do it. And you have to come to our system and you have to subscribe to our system. People are impulse buyers. They're not going to want to wait around till they die to find out whether they've got immortality. Now, recently there was a neurosurgeon, and his book is a bestseller, and he was skeptical about God. He was a scientist, you know. He thought that there were all these scientific theories about an afterlife. And then he had a near-death experience. I think it was like 25 or 30 days his body and mind were dead. And amazingly, he did come back. But he had a near-death experience where he experienced heaven. And when he came back, he realized that all these scientific explanations that he had did not hold water. Okay, so his book is out there. I haven't read it. I just scanned it. And I may mention it again later. But how many people are going to wait till they die to find out whether their religion was accurately going to give them immortal life? Like I said, people are impulse buyers, so it seems to me like if they could come along and say they have immortality, boy, that would really get people in their camp, stampeding like some of the other things that they have to sell us. This is the ball. It translates in English, eternal soul. From the ancient Egyptian way of looking at things, the sun was the Ba of the sun god. And every day there was a rebirth, there was a union of the Ba, where you had Ra and Osiris. In union, it was the he of two Bas. And what's interesting is back in ancient Egypt, the common people, right, the bottom third of the pyramid, were not believed or held to have a Ba. Imagine that. We weren't allowed to have an eternal soul. Now, there's a similar word to Ba, that's Ka, which means life force. And when the Pharaoh died, his Ba would go back to its creator. But it could also, as you see here, hover over it. And this Ba here is also related to the next thing we're going to look at, which is the winged globe or winged sun disk. And we learn much about the Ba in the Book of the Dead. That's our clearest illustration of the Ba. This is the winged sun disk. Charles Taze Russell, who was of an Illuminati bloodline, the Russell bloodline, he used the winged sun disks on his books. And this is one of his 7-volume series that was attributed to him that was called Study in the Scriptures. And there's a reason why I'm bringing out about Charles Taze Russell and the Jehovah's Witnesses, is because my Be Wise as Serpents book, as well as a number of the other books, went in great length to show how the Watchtower Society was a front for the Illuminati. And what's interesting about their beliefs is that they do not believe that you have an eternal soul. They believe that sometime in the future that your consciousness is going to be downloaded, you'll be given a new body, and then that consciousness put back into that body. And that's what I'm proposing that the Illuminati are already doing. And that it's interesting that that's how they see that you're going to get eternal life. That got them into conflict with standard Christian theology. It might seem like splitting hairs, but the Christian theology, which is based on the New Testament, which talks about there's some seed, something in your body that you have today is going to be a seed to create the resurrection body. Now, whether you want to think of that as DNA or something else, but there's going to be a seed involved. In other words, there's going to be some link between your body now and the resurrection body in eternal life. So that theologically got the two parties in having a difference. Now, here you see another on the left, something else that came out from the Watchtower Society, again with the winged sun disk. And then on the right-hand side is from another organization, the Theosophical Society. Charles Sage Russell knew about the Theosophical Society, and which also is another front for the same people that I was talking about. And both of them like to use the winged sun disk. And as you can see here, you've got the center, which is the sun, and then you've got the wings. And the winged sun disk has several meanings to it. And I don't want to imply that it has only one meaning, because what we had is we had the mystery religions stretching from India to the British Isles, and their priesthoods sent representatives to a grand council, which was the Illuminati. They were controlled all that way in antiquity. And they were using those principles of control that I was showing you earlier, where these mystery religions were saying, we have secret occult knowledge, and you need to become dependent on us. Okay? And that's the way they were doing it. And so in these different localities, there were different interpretations or meanings to the winged disk. In the Assyrians, the circle meant eternity. But the meaning that I'm focusing on for the winged sun disk is that it's the soul on its flight back to its creator. Okay? Now it can also represent the victory of Horus over Set, which is good over evil or light over darkness. It could represent that too. And in Mesopotamia, Ahura Mazda was represented by the winged disk. And then in India, the avatar of Vishnu was. So it had different meanings, but the meaning that I'm focusing on is the soul on its flight back to its creator. This is just as it says. It's speculated to be immortal because it's lived so long. Nobody knows how long the bristlecone pine lives. And I'm going to show you some species of plants and animals that are immortal. The oldest known bristlecone pine is 4,800 years. In practical sense, I'd say that was immortal. Some jellyfish are immortal. And the hydra, no, this isn't the hydra, but it's this is Turnitopsis dorni, which is an immortal jellyfish. And you can grab this jellyfish and do whatever you want to, poke it, cut it, beat it up, turn it inside out, and the thing regenerates itself. you can't hurt this sucker. Now, this is a hydra, and the hydra is also immortal, and it contains stem cells capable of continuous proliferation. An endless supply of these stem cells, regenerating stem cells. And what allows it to do that? Well, it's got a FOXO gene. Interesting that they gave the name to that gene, FOX, because earlier this week at the conference, we saw that FOX could represent 666. But anyway, the FOX gene is what gives the hydra its ability to be immortal. And what's interesting is in centenarians, people that live over 100 or 110, they have very active FOXO genes. So it's very possible that manipulation of that gene in humans to keep it active like it is in the Hydra is one of the solutions to immortality. What normally happens though for us is our stem cells decrease, become less active, and as they decrease, our muscle tone is lost and we decline. The Hydra is a predator, it's an animal, and like I was saying, immortal. Now, when I chose the topic of immortality, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm speaking to Americans, and although I'm speaking to probably an enlightened group, there may be some that still have American attitudes of there's a magic pill, magic bullet that will solve our problem. You know, microwave answers. That's what I encountered when I started working with the mind control, the trauma-based mind control, is I had people that were eager to help me, but they all flaked out on me because we didn't get microwave answers. Well, there isn't a magic pill to immortality, okay? And the way to make an analogy to tell you what we're up against is, let's say you wanted an immortal car. Well, the quality of material you use to make that car is going to determine its durability. Now, this is an Edsel. They made a durable car in the 50s, the Edsel. And it was so durable that nobody needed to buy new models and it went out of business. But now mechanics are telling me that they're making cars with the wiring. The wiring is so transitory that they know that the wiring will go bad in 2 years. So these new cars that you're buying have a lifespan of about 2 years. Yeah, planned obsolescence. So then the care that you give your car, you know, how you house it, maintain it, the quality of the fuels and oils, is going to determine how long it stays. And then the ability to restore it if it gets damaged. So these are the kind of issues that we're looking at for people to get immortality, right? We're going to discuss these because the quality of material that can be used, that pertains to genetic manipulation, right? Well, this is Henrietta Lacks. She was a black woman that in January 1951 was diagnosed with a stage 1 cancer tumor at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And then they, without her consent, took a sample of that tumor and gave it to a Dr. Gray. And they discovered, and she went ahead and died, they discovered that that her cells from the sample were immortal. They can live outside the body. And so they have been harvesting, these cells continue to clone themselves, to duplicate, and they don't stop. And they have been doing that since 1951, and they have gotten over 20 tons of cells for scientific experiments from her line of cells. And they have been used in countless scientific experiments. They're sold all over the world. In fact, that's what everybody wants to use. And they call her immortal cell line Helo. This is Adam Wilson. He's a bioengineer with the University of Wisconsin. And what he's doing is his cat that he's created reads the mind, reads the conscious mind, and he's putting, he put something up on Twitter with his cat reading his mind. And he is interested in taking this one step further, where you implant the brain so that your mind is being read with these implants, which will connect to the internet. And then your mind can be part of the global mind of the beast computers and the internet and everything, and it can all be one global mind. So that's where he would like to take this. Now, the stealth planes are just like I've written. They're piloted with the computers. They have multiple computers reading the pilot's here we see the bomber and the fighter. The stealth planes are piloted by thought control. And again, we see reading the pilot's mind. And so we're going to just discuss this concept some more. The military has been doing further projects besides just this. DARPA has the Avatar program, which Freeman talked about, and that's a mind transfer technology that they have that they're taking to outer space. And one of the people that's involved with this research is Dmitry Itskov, and he's head of what's called the 2045 initiative, and that group is working, and they say that by 2045 they will have the ability to download consciousness into a computer. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is because over the many years that I've been researching the Illuminati, I keep coming across here and there the proof that they're probably 30 years at least ahead of us in the technology that we know, and maybe even more. So I'm going to suggest, if he's saying that we can do this in 45 years, I'm going to suggest that they're already able to do it. Okay? And so he's working hard to make the body, Iskov is working to make the body to be an accessory. What do I mean by that? It means your mind can be downloaded somewhere, they give you a new body, they download that consciousness in there, and then when that body wears out, they download your consciousss to the new body, right? You can pick whatever body you want, I guess. And can that be done? Remember I was talking about the neurosurgeon who wrote that bestseller that's out there now, Proofs of Heaven, who had the near-death experience. When I scan read it, he mentioned the book, Irreducible Mind, which that book that came out in 2007 shows scientific evidence that the consciousness can be indeed separated from the body. So this isn't something theoretical, but they've proven that the consciousness can be separated from the body, which is very interesting, because remember Freeman's talk where he talked about Akhenaten's family, and he was talking about how, and I don't know how many heard it, so I'll just briefly touch on this, but he talked about how our President Obama's family, his wife and 2 girls, are identical to King Tut's father's family, and identical. It really makes you wonder if we're looking at clones there. These cows were cloned. Technically, if you're a farmer, you call them a cow. And these are cloned pigs. And I'm going to give you some highlights that I had time-wise on cloning, because most of us haven't really been following it closely. In 1952, they announced that they had cloned a frog. Right? In 1970, Lord Rothschild, he recommended that the United Nations have an agency to license and control human cloning. And in 1977 was the first public announcement of someone being cloned, someone who was very wealthy, but they kept the name of this person secret. And then in 81, they announced mice had been cloned. And then in 97, they again announced that humans had been cloned. And then in 2002, they said 100 people had been cloned. So we've got people being cloned. In 1997, because the idea still seemed to us sci-fi, I gave in the Deeper Insights book the steps that you would need to take to clone a person. Technically, To clone a person is no more complicated than it is to clone a cow or a pig. There's a few little differences in the steps, the procedures, but as far as complications, it's just as easy. And I'm going to suggest to you that the Illuminati not only have the motive to clone and to transfer consciousness, but they have the means. And if they have the motive and means, what's that mean? It means that they're doing it. That's the way I operate, you know. A little 1 + 1 = 2. So here are the steps if you were to clone a person, right? I'm going to try to read through this real quick, but to give your mind a little bit of that assurance that it's just a straight technique, right? So the ovaries are going to be monitored, and the oocyte is going to be taken with some follicle fluid, and then they're going to give the donor some clomiphene citrate so that they can harvest several eggs at one time. Then they're going to incubate that oocyte till it matures, and then they're going to take some semen and centrifuge it till they get it to the proper concentration. And then the donor's nucleus is going to be fused with a micropipette, or they could use an inactivated Sendai virus. And then the human nucleus transplant will be cultured until it's about 8 to 16 cell stage, and then it'll be placed into the foster mother by a catheter into the cervical canal, into the interior of the uterus. So it's just a straightforward procedure, people. This is not something real complicated. They've been cloning all kinds of mammals. Don't you think that they have the ability to clone people? And indeed, that they've been announcing that. So that's what I'm suggesting, is that, and this is from my Deeper Insights book, where I'm giving some details of how the gene cloning steps. And then this was a Time magazine. If you'll pardon the pun, will there ever be another you? You know. Now, these are telomeres. Well, we're talking about longevity, and there's actually a product B that supports telomeres, because there were, recently they made the breakthrough in discovering how they can stop telomeres from shortening. Telomeres used to be called junk DNA by the scientists. I knew when I heard that years ago that they had to be wrong. Nothing in our body is junk. But they used to call it junk DNA, which then they discovered that as the telomeres shorten, when they get to a certain length, you die. It doesn't matter if you're healthy or what. The length of your telomeres, which are those white things at the tips of the chromosomes, are related to the aging process. So they've been working on things to slow down or even reverse the shortening of the telomeres. And that's what the product B is all about. Now, Thomas Parr, he was reported to be 152 years. Now, whether that's true or not, that's a little debatable, but I showed his picture because I'm trying to give you life and life more abundant. And one of the tools of control over us is that they keep us sick. Okay? When you're weak and sick and not feeling well, you're easier to control. So one of the things that I put a lot of energy into is trying to reverse that, so that people will take responsibility for their health and live a full, healthy, active life. Well, that's what Thomas Parr had. He was eating simple food, and King Charles of England heard that he had a subject that was 152 years old, so he invited him to the palace. Do you know the rest of the story? Well, here's the rest of the story. The king celebrated, and they had this orgy of eating when he got to the palace, and the king's food killed him in 2 weeks. Killed him. The rich food killed him. So I think that that's a lesson that we need to pay attention to what we eat. You know, there's a reason why Monsanto and the world system is giving us this junk food, this GMO. They're trying to actually, to be more specific, I hate to say this, but the truth of it is, it's genocide. It's actually a genocidal agenda, and the stuff that they're feeding us is genocidal. And this year, I'm going to have to give up corn, because the new corn that they're coming out with, they've spliced in a particular DNA which neuters you as a man. It will shut down your sperm from being active. And if you want to have kids, and I want to continue having kids, then you're going to have to give up corn, one or the other. The oldest verified person by modern means lived to 122 years old. Now, of course, modern means, birth certificates or social security cards or whatever. We've got a lot of reports throughout history that are not verified by modern means of people living longer. But what's really interesting, and I said I was going to talk about Pennsylvania, is in going and looking at areas that have longevity, Pennsylvania has longevity. There were at least 7 verified people, verified by modern means, that had lived over 110 from Pennsylvania. And the oldest living person, Sarah Canals, 119 years, 97 days last I saw at the count. And she's from Pennsylvania. So, over 500 Americans have lived over 110 years. And that's interesting because in the Word of God it talks about originally people lived about 1,000 years, and then there was a point in time where that switched to 500, and then after Moses it said that the days of a man would be 120 years. And that's pretty accurate. 120 years seems to be the limit right now. But can that be changed? Here's poor Tom's gravestone. Now, the whole subject of the Illuminati and immortality, it's interesting how fiction sometimes is used by the world system to reveal a lot of truth. What they say is truth turns out to be fiction. What they're telling us is fiction. They have truth blended in. They blur the two. And so there's a book that came out, The Illuminati of Immortality, Alchemy, Dreams, and the Cybersonic Quest by Wayne Solomon. I just thought it was interesting because on the cover of it, they have like a boss or a winged sun disk on that. It's just, somebody knows that the Illuminati is interested in immortality and the law and all of the rest of this. So I think we can take some clues from fiction. One of the things is and I like the way Mark presented it, that we should be dedicated to truth. And when I started in researching the powers that be, powers that should not be, the Illuminati, I wanted to let the facts lead me wherever they led me. Because I believe that God is truth, and so wherever I find truth, I'm going to find God. And, there are people that say, okay, it's a Jewish conspiracy. Oh, it's a Catholic conspiracy. Well, it's beyond labels, people. It's just an evil conspiracy. But what was interesting is that I uncovered a connection that seemed to have escaped everybody, and that is, I kept finding all roads led back to the small country of Scotland. Scotland, of all things. The Highlanders, it was like, man. And so when I saw this come out, where it was about the Highlander has immortality, of course it's only 400 years, but I'd say 400 years is, in practical terms, immortality. But it was very interesting, the whole series. And the whole series got involved with all kinds of occult stuff that connect in with the occult and the Illuminati. Now, Billy Meyer, and I'm not presenting this to tell you to think one way or the other about Billy Meyer or what he presented. You could be for his material, against his material, or not even know about it. But Billy Meyer, as some of you may know, came out with vast amounts of transcripts of interaction with what were originally called Pleiadians, but then later they told us, or they told him, they were telling humanity, is what I mean, is that they were Pleiadians, not Pleiadians. But at any rate, they said that they lived to 1,000 years, and the way they did that was through genetic modification, and that they said humans would do the same in the future, that we would modify our genes to live to 1,000 years. What was interesting is they picked that 1,000 years, because that matched what the Bible was saying about the early people. There were 7 people that they specifically gave their ages in Genesis that lived close to, of course, the longest, as you know, was Methuselah. Adam was like 960 years. And then some people say, well, no, that wasn't the case, that when they were talking about people living those years, they were mixing up months for years. But then there's one of them that they list that fathered, that was Shem's son, fathered a boy when he was 35. Well, you wouldn't father someone at 35 months. So obviously they meant years. And the whole context, the way it reads, they were saying people lived long. Okay, well that's interesting. And so what I'm throwing out to you, I'm going to throw out to you is some hints of the potential to do what they're saying that mankind can do. And already in the labs, they're doing the things that I'm going to talk about. And these things, if they were applied to humans, plus a lot of other things. Remember I said back in the car analogy, it's going to involve a lot of things. And here's been my thinking the last 30 years. And I'm finally going public with this thinking. I've told other people individually, but finally going public, so you get to be the first ones that I'm experimenting on. I think that whether they have true immortality or not, if all they can do is keep you alive for 400 years, that's still enough hook. Because you're going to have to wait around 400 years to find out whether it's right or wrong. That's still enough to pull the rug out from underneath all these world religions and create a world religion. So I would expect that even if with their level of technology, they can only increase your lifespan by several hundred more years, like the Highlander series, which he was 400, I think they'll still do it, because they can make you dependent on their system, right? So, through genetic modification, let me just give you some hints here. These are things that have already been done in the lab, right? The FOXO gene activated to keep the number of stem cells that regenerating stem cells prolific, that they've already done that with the FOXO gene. There's a protector SOD gene that can be strengthened to scavenge. It's the gene that scavenges free radicals, and it can be strengthened so that you're protected against free radicals. There's a gene that resets the collagen-collagenase ratio. As you get older, what happens in the humans is your ratio of collagen to collagenase gets worse. I'm assuming everybody knows what collagen is. If you don't, I should tell you right now, because a large share of your body is made up of collagen. It's what holds you together. And as you get older, past 30, your body basically quits producing it. That's why you die. All of you seriously should think about the possibilities of introducing collagen into your life to keep yourself more youthful. And then there's a controversy, can you get a good collagen? And not all collagens are going to be safe. Some of them are going to be suspicious, but I'll leave that research up to you. That's your exciting path. See, that's the thing that is so important here that I'm going to stress. And Mark kind of did that, but I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. I believe that the journey seeking truth is more important than the pot of gold at the end of the search. By going and seeking and going on this quest, you're learning, right? And see what the churches and a lot of other organizations do, the schools, they give you this box lunch, this prepackaged truth, and they give it to you. Okay, here. Just swallow it, you've got truth, that's it. You join the Jehovah's Witnesses, you're in the truth. You don't grow, you don't learn. You're stifled as a person. You remain a little child. You've just been spoon-fed something. So I'm not trying to spoon-feed you. If I could do anything for you, it would be to motivate you to go on this quest for truth. Because the quest, the journey, the fighting, the research and everything, that's the exciting part. That's where you're really going to gain, right? It's not in the answers that you're going to get in the end. It's in the striving to get there. It's the journey that's important. So I don't want to steal anybody's journey. Now, Gilgamesh, I'm going to find my notes here. Probably all of you have heard about it. It was before the 22nd century. They had the saga of Gilgamesh, and what it was somebody that wanted eternal life. And now in modern times, we see that this character Gilgamesh has come into focus again. There was a movie about Gilgamesh the Immortal in 1969, and then the aliens were saying that there was Gilgamesh, and this is what they were saying about him, and that he got trapped in here. I'm not saying this is true or false, I'm just saying, we have all of these hints from history and from reality that maybe some people are actually living longer than a lifespan. And I've known people that bumped into such kinds of people, and some of them have had their lives turned upside down because maybe they discovered too much. See if I can. I had a note here to remind myself of some of these people that other people have bumped into. I have personally never bumped into anybody that, in getting to know them, I could say, oh boy, this person's lived for, like the Count Saint Germain, you've heard of him, right? That he's not died. That type of situation. I don't know, anybody out here bumped into somebody like the Count Saint Germain? Well, no hands are going up. But I do know people that have. And that suggests that that strongly suggests that maybe there are a few individuals, and it's my contention from the little bits and pieces that I've gathered over the last 30 years, that indeed a few individuals are being given this immortality. They are indeed taking a consciousness and putting it into a body and giving a few individuals. but I think that the vast majority of members in the occult and in the Illuminati are the secret's even being withheld from them. That's why I say this may be the biggest secret. And that's what we were talking about earlier. Another movie that was interesting that I wanted to bring out about was The 13th Floor. Maybe some of you have seen it, 1999 movie. A German scientist creates a holographic machine, and then he moves his consciousness to this holographic reality. Now, holograms okay. And holograms are very important because at the quantum level, everything's a hologram. Our universe is a hologram. Our minds are holograms. And our thinking and our consciousness is holograms. So there's a whole level of understanding here about holograms that makes that movie, The 13th Floor, interesting. In fact, and those who are into quantum physics talk about our reality as being the field, or another name that they have for it's the holographic universe. And in dealing with individuals, I've been dealing with a lot of people that were in the Illuminati, and from an insider, for instance, I learned that they created a phone based on quantum physics. And when you get ready to ask a question, before you ask the question, the answer comes. It's like reverse time. It blew the people's minds that made it so bad. I mean, they knew what they were headed towards, but it's so out of the box to use quantum physics to do something like that, it was hard for them to wrap their minds around what they had invented. But I mention that because there's a lot of things like that that I bump into that lead me to believe they're way ahead of us technologically. And so when they say that we're going to have the ability to download our consciousness to a computer in a few years, in 30 years, I'm saying, well, they already have it in secret. Okay, I wanted to shift gears here. What's really interesting is I'm the last speaker, so I get the last word. And the last word is hope, and I'm going to talk about hope. Now, I talked with Kathy O'Brien. I was just seeing if this would resonate with her, and it did. When I worked with Cisco, there were times, a large share of it at the time, where she could see no hope. The mind control programming was so overwhelming. The Illuminati were swarmed around us constantly. I mean, the story behind the story would take encyclopedias to write. It was a madhouse. And them coming into the house, moving next door, tag team following my car for years. It was like the movie Enemy of the State. It was wild. And anyway, she couldn't see hope in that. And I would tell her, I'd say, Cisco, you're in a dark room. You can't see the door handle. The door handle's there, but I will hold on to your hope for you. So, the Word tells us that hope is not something we see, and that's the truth. Another thing that it tells us is it tells us that hope is a virtue. Now, oftentimes, probably everybody here knows that honesty is a virtue, or thriftiness, but how often do you hear someone say that to be a man of hope or a woman of hope is to be a virtuous person? To have hope is a virtue. And out of that hope is going to come so many other things. You're not going to move forward. I've sat there in a restaurant and people didn't even know who I was. They were next door in the booth. I'm telling a story from like 20 years ago. I was surprised. They're sitting there talking about the New World Order. And then all of a sudden, on one side of the table, the couple got angry and they said, yeah, but you can't do anything about it. In the conversation, that's it. You see, to have hope is a virtue. It may not be seeable, but the ancient wisdom, I'll use that word because a lot of people get squeamish if I say scriptures or whatever, but the ancient wisdom teaches us that hope is a virtue. And on that word, I'm going to end this talk. I encourage you to go forward as you've heard today, seek truth, have hope, and enjoy being here among you.